Is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. And what a fascinating topic. We're talking with Ann Bausum today from National Geographic Kids. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. It's a book called Ensnared in the Wolf's Lair, Inside the 1944 Plot to Kill Hitler and the Ghost Children of His Revenge. It really is a fascinating topic, and the fact that this book is written for school students is really, really intriguing to me. Ann, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be with you, Todd.
It's so good to have you with us as we talk about this, and we've heard about it in other settings, Hitler's plot to go after the people who were responsible for the Valkyrie attempted assassination against him, but maybe none of us realized how deep his desire for revenge went, but you got right to the bottom of it.
Absolutely. There was no one spared in his attempt to exact revenge.
It was really a deep-seated plot, maybe deeper than any of us thought, the number of people who were involved in it. And Hitler and his minions, they got to the bottom of it in their own way. And so if you could explain to us how he exacted his revenge and how extensively he went after the families of the plotters.
Right. So your listeners may be familiar with the history of July 20, 1944, when a German officer, von Stauffenberg, placed a attaché case under a table at a military conference. It was filled with explosives, and it was set to detonate and kill Adolf Hitler. The briefcase did explode, but it had been moved after it was placed near Hitler, and so he was injured but not killed. And in the hours afterwards, the steps that had been plotted to have an overthrow and capture of Gestapo agents and other private military forces collapsed as well. And Hitler was furious. The conspirators, as they were unmasked, were pulled in for show trials, and more than 150 were executed. But he also punished the family members, almost immediately rounding up wives, older children, parents, aunts and uncles, and so forth, putting them in prison and using them as leverage to try to extract confessions and further uncover the breadth of the conspiracy. And even as these family members were being held in detention, Gestapo agents returned to their homes and removed their younger children from the homes so that as those older relatives were let out of detention, they came home and their kids were gone.
And out of that came, really, when it gets down to it, your book and this journey of discovery that you make, and it was helped along by the discovery of a diary by one of those children, and your research into her and other survivors of this really is point on. It really explains it so well to kids. Tell us about Krista.
Yeah, so Krista, we think of history as something that's settled and in the past, but there are eyewitnesses still alive from these experiences. These were children. They're now in their 70s and 80s. And Krista eventually resettled from Germany to the United States. She lives on the West Coast. And she and I have communicated by email and phone multiple times in the course of doing the research for the book. But more importantly, she was kind enough to share her diary with me. And it is she was 12 when she started it, trying to just make sense of what was happening to her and her family members after this plot unraveled. And it's a chilling documentation of just the extent of steps that the regime was willing to take to try to isolate these kids, to unsettle them, taking away their last names, separating siblings so that they couldn't be together, keeping them detained without any explanation of why or wherefore it would end. And so that kind of eyewitness account that she was able to share, that her diary recorded, and that I got from other now adult children was just fascinating and makes for a gripping story.
One of the most valuable, I think, aspects of your book is helping today's kids who are reading this book understand the terror that these kids had inflicted upon them, what they were going through emotionally at that time. I would assume that has a great value to them when they are facing their own terrible circumstances today. But it really was something to see how you broke it down for us and explained how these kids were feeling in that time.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I took away from the book was a deeper appreciation for how terror can take many forms. And of course, we are most familiar with the most extreme form of it during the Holocaust, and that most visceral form of terror. But the terror of anxiety, of uncertainty, of just being having your identity stolen from you. All of these things are terrifying, and I think you're right. It maybe in lesser ways, hopefully lesser, that there are experiences that young people are having, which there's some solace that you can take from people who've survived other hardships and come through okay in most cases.
To help you yourself understand, you went to the scene of the crime, if you will. You made a couple of trips there, didn't you?
Yes, I went to Europe twice. The first time principally to see the Wolfschanze and just get the Wolf Lair in Poland and just get a general sense of Nazi history, because this was not a period that I had studied intently. But it was during that first trip that I learned about these children and this family punishment. And later on, when I was trying to sort out what angle to study, that was the one that really came to the fore, particularly this theme of family separation, because we were talking about that again in our own news with some of the family separations of immigrants and refugees and so forth. So that drew me back to Germany. That's when I began to meet some of these eyewitnesses and to visit the place where they were held in captivity.
What sort of effect did that have on you, being in that place?
Well, it was literally ghostly. The buildings are largely unused. They're vacant. They're dilapidated. They're falling into disrepair. We were given permission to go inside one of them, and there were cupboards with the drawers pulled open. It was almost as if the children had just left. It very much felt like the history was, you could almost reach out and touch it.
One of the interesting things about it is you just used the word, it was ghostly. They actually had a nickname for those kids, Ghost Children. How did that come about?
Right. That was a nickname given to them. They weren't aware of it until years later because of their this imposition on them of silence whenever they were out of doors. And some adults who were also staying on the same property saw these children just walking the lawns silently and came up with this nickname for them of Geisterkinder, which means ghost children. And that's a label that came to light later on and has stuck with them.
Ann Bausum has been with us this morning. We've been talking about her new book, Ensnared in the Wolf's Lair, Inside the 1944 Plot to Kill Hitler and the Ghost Children of His Revenge. Ann, where are we going to find more information on it?
I would encourage people to go to my author website, which is just my name, Ann, no E, Bausum, Bausum, and you can find out more about the book. There's a link to buying it on Amazon. I'd encourage you to go to your local bookstores, and you should be able to find it in your library.
This is a book that kids need to know. And Ann, I want to thank you for being with us. I do appreciate your time here this morning.
Likewise. So glad to be with you. Thanks, Todd.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160 and AM 11.